When I woke up on Monday, I saw that there was an interview from Adventures in Poor Taste with Jordan White, the group editor of X-Men. I have been lambasting Jordan White here on the channel for quite some time for his terrible take on the X-Men universe, his terrible leadership and management of the X-Men comic books line. Sales, for the most part, bear that out. The X-Men is not in a very good spot. It is way oversaturated, and the stories themselves aren't very good. Now, this was a Father's Day special interview with Jordan White, so he knew he wasn't going to let a whole lot out of the bag, but he did kind of get into some territory that I thought was interesting. In fact, at the beginning, I thought he was making some really good points. He was explaining why he doesn't really like superheroes to have kids because it has to change the priority of the character. And can they really go off saving the world and just leave their kids behind when they need to be taken care of? I disagree with it, but I understand where he was coming from. And then he made even more sense when he was talking about all the doubles and clones and family members with the same powers as the original superhero within the Marvel Comics universe. And I was like, oh my goodness, Jordan White is making sense. But he is Jordan White. He didn't make sense for long. In fact, he completely contradicted himself in very short order. And then by the end, he made himself look kind of like a boob, even though he is the X-Men group editor. And I'm told his greatest strength as a group editor is the fact that he knows the X-Men continuity and history inside and out. As you will be able to see with the very last question, that is not the case. Let's start out with what I thought was a pretty good statement and really made a whole lot of sense, even though it is kind of contradictory to what is going on in X-Men. Let's talk about the first question. Adventures in Poor Taste asked, with so many alternate universe children running around the X universe, are there any editorial rules about introducing new ones and overcomplicating already extremely overcomplicated continuity? This is what Mr. White had to say. Rules is too extreme, but I caution people about doubles. We don't need more doubles. So like with all things that I work with the writers on, when they come up with their ideas, I don't ever make hard and fast rules where I'm like, you may not do this. But there are things that I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. You need to show me that this is a story that's worth doing. And I think that's usually one of them. Because again, like you said, there used to be more doubles than there are now. We've kind of weeded a few of them out. But with the X-Men especially, you've already got hundreds of characters. Do you need 5 versions of the same character in our universe? And the answer is no, you don't. You're damn straight you don't. There are far too many heroes within the Marvel Comics universe. There are 2 versions of Captain America right now. We've got 2 characters calling themselves Spider-Man. We have Hulk essentially as Thor in the storyline right now. We currently have a Miles Morales story of what if he was every other superhero in the Marvel universe, besides the one that he's already taken the name from. We've got the Gwenverse, where Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider or whatever she wants to be called is essentially every other hero in the Marvel Comics universe. And it is really oversaturated. It's a played out trope, and it's not really all that effective. But there are too many characters trying to steal the hero identities of other characters right now. And if you look at the X-Men line specifically, there are so many overlaps when it comes to power sets now. It's unbelievable. We have too many teleporters. We have too many characters with telekinesis. We have too many precogs. And we certainly have too many Wolverines. My goodness, how many Wolverines do you need in one universe? Wolverine is supposed to be a loner character. That's why people like the character. He was gruff. He wasn't all that nice. But every once in a while, he would show his softer side and really show you that there was more to the character out there. You could definitely root for him. He's an anti-hero. Everyone loves him. Guess what? He's not the only Wolverine. In fact, Laura, who some people seem to call his daughter now, under Jordan White's leadership, they continued to call the character Wolverine, which is in direct contradiction to what he just said there, which I agree with. There are far too many clones and doubles and offspring and characters with the exact same power set within the Marvel Comics universe. There needs to be an enormous culling of the herd and really streamlining their universe and highlighting their most important characters. And as I mentioned earlier, yes, he did say something that I absolutely agree with, but he then contradicts himself almost immediately within the interview. This is the next question I'm going to cover from Adventures in Poor Taste. We finally had a long-awaited Wolverine family story where they work together and function as a family. We haven't seen Logan interact much with his kids before, and it's hard to tell if he's close to them. Can we expect to see more Wolverine family stories and Logan spending more time with his kids in the future too? Remember what Jordan White said before this. This is his answer. Yes, I think you can expect that. It's nothing that I can announce right now, but I do think you can expect that. I will say Ben Percy has actually been wanting to do one for ages, but there's always been some reason or other that we couldn't for a long time. It was that Laura was in the vault. He wanted to do one way back then, but I was like, oh, Laura isn't around, and that's a very specific plot point. He wanted to do a big family story that we couldn't, but he was very happy to finally be able to do it in X-Deaths of Wolverine. But yes, you will see them together again for sure. So the group editor for X-Men, Jordan White, previously in the interview acknowledges that there are far too many characters that are unnecessary, too many clones, too many doubles and whatnot. And then when he's asked about the Wolverine family, oh yes, we're going to do an enormous family team-up story with Wolverine, which contradicts his previous statement. If he really wanted to fix this problem, he would be killing off these characters. He would call Laura X-23, get rid of Dakin, get rid of Badger, and move on with their lives. There are too many Wolverine characters. As Doc says, throw them all into the sun and let them disappear. So I do find it ironic that he understands the problem where you have too many of the same character, but in the same interview he says, yes, we're going to double down on that and we want to do more of that. Typical Jordan White philosophy. He knows the right thing to do. In fact, he said when he was pitched X-Men Greed, he said, we shouldn't do this story, but somehow he was coerced into it. He knows there are too many Wolverine characters, yet he keeps highlighting Laura as Wolverine, causing confusion and really downgrading X-23. She isn't Wolverine. She's X-23. There are too many Captain America characters. There are too many Spider-Man. There are too many Hulk characters. And there's damn sure too many Wolverine characters in his own X-Men line. And I hope Jordan White does something or maybe has a light bulb moment and figures, hey, I just said something that made sense. Maybe I should take some action on that. As I mentioned earlier, he does make himself look like a bit of a fool being the X-Men group editor. I'm not going to say I know everything about X-Men and I don't know all their history, but he's the group editor. That's what he's paid to do. I thought this was absolutely hilarious. And if I were the writer from AIPT that did this interview, I would have removed this and not made him look stupid. But hey, thank you for including it because let's highlight this bad boy. Question, what do you think of Angel's kids, the Apocalypse twins, Eamon and Uriel? This is what Jordan White had to say. That's shocking to me. As I said earlier, I know every character has their fans. So, of course, if you ask me just, do the Apocalypse twins have fans? The answer has to be yes, because every character does. But I've never had anyone ask me about them, so that's quite surprising to me. I mean, listen, they haven't gotten a lot of love. We've had very specifically a bunch of stories about Apocalypse and his family, but not them. And maybe that should change. Right now, most of Apocalypse's family is not around. They're off in Amenth doing Amenth things that we have not revealed yet. So my guess is it's fairly unlikely that they would show up before he does, but anything's possible. This is what the interviewer says, but those are Warren Apocalypse's kids, reminding him that these are actually the kids of Angel. The group editor for X-Men says, oh, right, that's right, I'm sorry. And then the questioner says, I guess they're kind of the grandchildren of Apocalypse. Jordan White says, right. You calling them the Apocalypse twins confused me for a second, but right. I do remember it was Angel had the death seed inside of him and then had these children. I have been told on many occasions behind the scenes that the biggest positive that Jordan White brings to the X-Men office as the group editor is that he is like a capsule of X-Men knowledge. He remembers everything. Apparently he does remember everything, but it was kind of apparent within the question itself that they were talking about Angel's kids, the Apocalypse twins. But I guess there's so many characters within the Marvel Comics X-Men universe, it's hard to keep track of them. Another reason that Jordan White should probably stick with the first answer, say there's too many kids, too many clones, and start wiping some of them out. Way too many teleporters, way too many precogs, way too many telekinetics, way too many characters that have healing factors just like Wolverine. Jordan White, as the group editor of X-Men, if he wants to leave with any shred of dignity or anything remotely close to a legacy of anything good within his time of X-Men, needs to start getting ready to some of these characters, needs to develop a backbone, needs to start telling some of these creators no, and start getting rid of some of these superfluous, unnecessary, lame-ass characters. Interesting enough, Jordan White and a lot of the other people within the X-Men office had talked not that long ago. I kind of covered it where they really explain why the X-Men line sucks right now. Obviously, this is a part of it, but it's much bigger than that. If you don't remember this interview where they talked to really everybody and exposed so many stupid ideas going on in X-Men, definitely check this out.